for an informal discussion here. If we can all kind of move up, if you would like, to get a little bit closer so we can all be heard and not have to yell. I very much want to make this the first of many get-togethers where we actually get to interact. So get used to that. These types of meetings and events are going to be posted pretty regular. And again, this is going to be the first of many. I understand there's a lot of questions. There's some new faces up here. And people often fear the unknown. And they hear all kinds of things. What these new members want, what direction are they going? And quite often, the rumor mill gets started. I've heard all kinds of things from us being warmongers who want to promote war, to go after gays and atheists. That's not what we're here to do. There's a 1798 church in Ashes over here that is just one of the most beautiful buildings I've been in a long time. And it deserves the respect of being brought back to what it was 200 years ago. All right, that's our goal. And I've got to be as honest with you folks as I have with other members of the board and members of the church. And I know I'm not going to be the most popular person in the room for saying this, but I am a blunt instrument, and I'm not going to lie to you folks. I have been going over to speak with John Connell for the better part of 4 years. When I go over there, I often bring him into the kitchen. It is the most nondescript room with not a bit of purple in it anywhere. I found it distracting to me, distracting to Mr. Connell, and personally, as a Christian, I was offended at some of what I saw. All right, there are things that were on that property that were unnecessary. I love John to pieces. He tried something new. He was trying to reach out to the Free Staters and the Liberty people to attract them in, because they're not really a big church-going group sometimes. He tried, and he had moderate success at that. I'm going to take some of the things that did work for him, and they'll probably be kept. But we've got a whole bunch of new ideas. And I'm going to stay here, and I'm sure the rest of the board is going to stay here and answer and field these questions until there are no more questions. I don't want you to leave fearing the unknown or fearing any of these people. So in short, we want to bring it back to what it was in its heyday. We want to see that first level buzzing with activity, the doors open 24 hours a day. We know the power goes out up here quite a bit. Half the roads aren't plowed in the winter. It would be nice if we had 100 cots over there and a place for people to go. Food for people that can't eat. I mean, these are some of the crazy things that we new people talk about. Not warmongering. We talk about how to feed people and take care and build community. We've got a huge scar on this town right now. It was and still is a beautiful town, but something horrible just happened this week. And I know there's people that view John as a phony, and I'm going to tell you, I got to go to his memorial service down in Salem, Mass. I got to meet people I've never met before, and for the first time, I got a much clearer view of Pastor Connell over his life, over decades. He's been preaching way before he was the owner of the church, that I can tell you. Again, I was offended at some of the things I saw. Hated the purple. I'll never buy purple anything ever again. But the man was solid. I was sharing with someone earlier. Recently, I was running around saying the last thing John gave me was the Bible, and I had a nice Bible. It was New and Old Testament, and on it, he had put a yellow post-it that said free. And it was on the shelf just inside the main entrance of the church where those people needed a Bible. And I saw it and I said, I just got to have that. And I left the post-it right on there because everything good in that book is great. And I stopped saying that that's the last thing that John gave me. That ain't the last gift he gave me. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see from a couple weeks ago, John and I went up in the bell tower. And was represented in the picture. You see the bottom of my legs looking down from the bell, right down the ladder into the attic of that church. John was down at the bottom tying tools and supplies on it that I could haul up there and do what I was doing. And during that time, when I got that gift from John, it was a discussion to be had. Sometimes it ain't material things that you hold in your hands that are the gifts that are most cherished. Sometimes the things that people share with you. Because a generous, warm-blooded human being, he was connected to God, but he had a very flamboyant way of trying to project that on the property. So, although I share some of your sentiments in what visually and aesthetically might not have appealed to me, because those same things didn't appeal to me, but the things that did appeal to me and should matter to you folks as warm-blooded human beings is the individuals that stayed in that church. The priest forgiveness. And for those that know me, I have a big problem forgiving people that screw me over. So I spent a lot of time over 4 years in personal consult with Mr. Tom. He was doing his job, even though his yard looked like a flea market threw up on that poor church. The man did his job. There are certain things that constitute pastoring and certain things that don't. He did what he had to do. I think, and I shared with him in the final weeks and months that we had with John, I said, you know, I'm pretty open-minded. If I came here on a Sunday and there were 50 people inside here having service, I say, John, give me a can of purple paint and a brush and let me have at it. I'd be out there painting that place purple too if I could get that many people a little closer to Jesus. But I admitted, and eventually he admitted, maybe not all that stuff was quite working. Not entirely. There was something missing. 1 or 2 people to service. You know, something's wrong. We got to build that. I've seen the last one I was at. We had a dozen or more. We need to. That needs to be the minimum number. We need to get the message out, and it isn't through the art. I appreciate John's artistic talents. I really do. His art and his pastoring came together. They should have been apart.
As I met, so hearing from Dave, there's so much others that Bobby would say.
Yeah, I'm going to ask each of the members to say a little bit about themselves. I mentioned earlier, everyone was brought in for a specific reason, a specific talent, all underpinned by God. So in moving forward, I'm going to let everyone go around the table. I'm going to do that right now. And I want you to fire every question you have at me. If you've got a fear of something you don't know, what to expect, what not to expect, anything, I want you to bring that up.
Can we listen to questions first?
Let me do the introductions. That way, if you have a question that is specific to a person who's going to hold a particular position or talent, you can tailor your questions. But we'll go through this quickly, and then we'll field every question you have. Let's start with Bobby Newman. Sure.
Yes. Thank you for staying. I am involved with a lot of different things. I'm the president of the North Central Mass Tea Party, number 1. Number 2, I'm a CERT member, which is Community Emergency Response Team. I was on the fire department. I'm involved in a lot of community things in my town. I'm on 5 different committees. I was on the school committee for 15 years. I got off. When Dave called and he told me what was happening, because I was running for school committee, and he told me he needed help, here I am. I want to serve you people. I want to work with you people. I know you need a time to heal for what has happened to your beautiful church. You have a great community here. It is absolutely gorgeous. I wouldn't mind spreading my roots out here. I really would love to come out here and have a house. But you know, we need to work together, and we need to come together. And we're all together. We're how can I say it? I'm a Roman Catholic. I don't care what religion anybody is. Let's work together, people. Let's help each other. Let's serve each other. I want to do fundraising. I want to get some meals out to people. I want to help you. I want this community to grow for you and for you to grow with it. So let's help each other and let's get together and do things with each other and support, okay? Thank you.
Ron?
My name is Ronald Crochetier, a resident of Springfield, Massachusetts, a small business owner for the last quarter century. I'm here to help out some friends of mine that have showed me this beautiful place. I'll cut to the chase. Obviously, there's a tax issue here that needs to be paid, but more importantly, what are your aspirations for that property? You want to see that thing raised, made a field, or do you want to see that piece of history brought back together? And if that's the case, how do you want to see that happen? And how can Dave, I implore you to ask Dave how you want to, what he's planning on doing, and how you can help him do that. Other than that, you know, what is going to be the future should you folks not be interested in seeing what happens with this particular board? It goes back to the town, and the town sells it off, auctions it off, or tries to garner their own support. So they keep that in mind, see how you want to put that forward, and ask Dave all the hard questions.
Sonia McPhail, I'm the vice chair of the board, and my part in this is going to be to set up all the programs for the church. And I have some experience. I owned a bar for many years and had events every single night of the week. So I put together all these events every night. And so that's what I'm planning on doing as part of this board, is to do things for the community, what the community needs. So if we need some kind of elderly service, Meals on Wheels, or maybe just a friendly visit from somebody from the church, you know, people that are shut in. One other plan I had was to have a Helping Hands Day where maybe once a month some nice strong men from the community could go and help somebody in need that maybe needs their shed fixed, or perhaps needs their garden weeded, or something like that, you know. And there's many other things. I have a whole list here if anybody wants to ask me questions about that after. Thank you.
Lois?
I'm not going to stand, but I think I can talk loud enough so everyone can hear. I moved here in 1953 from Rochester, New Hampshire, and I took a job in a lumber mill in Enfield. And we bought a place in Etna, and I had a bakery in my home for 10 years, and I had a 4-H club at the same time with about 100 kids in it, and they came from Cornish and all towns all around because the 4-H clubs were giving up. And when I was traveling back and forth from Rochester to Enfield, I saw this church. I fell in love with it then. I never had a chance to be down to be in it until 4 years ago when I heard that there was the Bible study. My folks never went to church. I didn't go to church. I never knew anything about the Bible. I said, this is my chance. And a friend of mine says, if you want to go, let's go. I said, I do. Next time I have a chance to know that they're having a service. So we did. I met John Connell, and I thought he was a nice man to talk to, but what you can always tell the first time. We got to be over the 3 or 4 years that I was coming in here. He got to be a great friend of mine. And he looked up to me for a lot of things because my age was so much older than his that he found that he knew, learned a few things that he had heard of before. And so then, I don't know, all of a sudden he was here anymore. So I'm just looking
last 4 years. I probably would not have blinked an eye. But I find it chilling anytime the government comes in and can decide who's a church, what looks like a church. I'm more traditionalist. But I think that the government doesn't have any say in what is acceptable as a church and what is not acceptable as a church. If taxes exemption is one thing at the church down the street, who's to say, who is the government to say that this church does not meet the criteria of that same exact tax exemption that the church down the street is getting?
Right.
The other thing that I wanted to just stress to you all is how much we want to help your community. We do want to come here and bring back kind of that traditionalist meeting house, community center. New England does this. This is what we do. This is such a New Englandy thing to do. I've always told everybody from this that, with the taxation of the government, take my money to give it to this Mr. Poor guy. I'm sorry, but 50 years ago, you went to the church and you helped, you raped, you did something, and you might get a meal, and you might not get a meal, but you weren't busting your, community's pocketbooks through taxation to give money to people that weren't involved in their community. That's where you get the disconnect. When you have a bunch of folks that are just benefiting off of, community services. This church, paying taxes, not paying taxes, going forward is going to be a huge part of this community. I don't think that the taxes are all that important, but if that's what it takes to bring about some community support, get Mr. Moneybags involved, I think that that's what we'll do, if that's what it takes. It has to be a coalition. It has to be a community effort. It has to be a board effort, and it has to town fathers support. And that's my part. Thank you.
Folks, now's the time to ask your questions, and when you're done asking your questions and meeting is over, I highly recommend that if you like what you hear, or if you want to contribute in finances, if in thoughts and efforts or anything, stop by, grab one of these pads here, put your name and number down so that we can begin forming a coalition to make this happen for you. Dave, go ahead.
Thanks, Ron. That's a point well taken. I was going to ask for that anyways. Ma'am, in the middle.
Hi, I'm Sue Chakowski. I have a few things to say, and try to direct them as questions. First of all, you need to separate yourself from politics if you're going to get any support in this community. Any of us could call ourselves a church, and then where would we be for taxation? I could call my house a church if we didn't have any guidelines as to what a church actually is. And when I have mental health problems, I want to go to someone who's been trained as a minister to deal with mental health problems, or marriage problems, or whatever kind of problems that an ordained minister would have had training in. And they would be leading a church. I'm wondering what kind of board you are, how you're incorporated. In order to be a board of directors, you should be incorporated with some sort of bylaws. I don't know what you mean by board. And I also want to say that I've been in Grafton since 1978, and the conversation has really shifted because of the Free State movement, the Free Town movement in this town. We used to actually have people get up and discuss the budget at our town meetings, and actually have a back and forth discussion. Now nobody wants to talk about anything because we know the agenda that's coming through there. So what I'm saying is you got to remove yourself from politics if anyone's ever going to consider you a church. I don't know how you're going to get to that point where you actually are a church, but you'll definitely need to have a leader, a minister, an ordained person, and probably be affiliated with some sort of organization. Finally, I spent probably about 15 years involved with that church. Opened up the upstairs sanctuary, put on the steeple, and I was no longer involved with it when the new church was built. but my heart was broken every time I drove by it. I wish the town had taken it when it had the chance. And the dreams of the historical group in town here is, and that's who you need to be working with, is that it be restored to public use, not just a church use. Okay, originally it was one story, it was facing the other way on the other side of the road. The town moved it, the church moved it, turned it around, raised it up, and put the first floor on. That sanctuary was not open when I was first attending that church because we didn't have access. We put in the stair lift, the windows, etc. There are a lot of people in this town. We have some experts in this town for historical restoration, and I'm hoping that it becomes a public building, not just a church. Your ideas about doing things for people, those things are in place in the Mascoma Valley. More power to you to bring them closer. That's a really nice thought. Those things are here. There's a lot of organizations. We actually have a person in the Mascoma district who is involved with the state food bank now. I am a little bit chagrined to see that your board is mostly from out of town and from one town. I don't quite get that. So anyway, I had a lot of questions, a lot to say.
Okay, I mean, we are dispersed, and from Massachusetts. I am a new transplant. I own property here in town. I don't plan on going anywhere. When I saw what happened, I reached out of the hundreds of people that I know, I reached out to a select few that I was confident would help pull this off. There's no one sitting at this table that you haven't met that didn't have a very specific talent that I tapped into for this. So, geography-wise, I hope, you can get over the fact that we're from Massachusetts. I apologize for Massachusetts. There's a lot of horrible things down there. But we're not bringing any of those horrible things here. We are small government people. We like control of our own lives. We like to raise our own kids without government intervention. The things that we're offering, the whole downstairs, I think, from almost everything that, as I've talked to everyone, in the plans as we brainstorm going forward, all indicate exactly what you asked for, which is public. We see very few instances why that door would ever be locked. I really can't think of anything unless there's a very special reason or for some reason it was unsafe or we couldn't have people in there. Other than that, that room should be open. People should be able to come in there if they're hungry or cold, if they're depressed, and if they're homeschool parents and just want to get together. And I mean, one of the things that we talked about is having an entire area in there stocked, a kid's library. It's just ready for parents to come in and take over the education of their own children. I'm a homeschool parent. I pulled my kids out of the re-education camps when they were in 6th grade. And I do not, I couldn't recommend it higher. It's the best thing I did for my kids ever. So we want to promote that. There's nothing in any of the programs that I've seen that indicates that we're being exclusive in any way. Moreover, again, what's happening right here, I am pretty excited about. And every time we brainstorm as a group, we come up with great ideas. And I notice that as more people jump in, it just results in more great ideas. So, please, if you really care about the church and want to see it look like it did nearly 200 years ago, bring what you have to the table. We're not categorically rejecting anything. I told you how I felt about the purple. This is going to be a nice white and green church again very soon. We're going to bring back those things that I think you had and still want to have. And the fact that some of our board is from Massachusetts, I think bears little relevance if you care to look at the programs and the aspirations they bring to the table. They cross state boundaries. Yes, sir.
I've got a bunch of questions One is, are you, as a board, going, we know that the selectmen's hands are tied to quite a bit. There's very little left that they could take and do. Is the board going to finish taking care of their taxes after you meet with the select board? And if you get it all paid, are you going to be tax exempt? And then another thing, like Sue said, is if you're going to be a church, you can't bring politics in there. And that's part of the problem that existed with the church now. Everybody could say they like John and everything else, but there was still that politics there. And another question that was asked is that board going to take and clean up the yard? That's a question that everybody wants to know, because it was an eyesore to a lot of people in town. It was a historical building, and they looked at it as that. But when stuff started collected on the outside and everything, and John had his good to him, we could never take that away from him, but it was still became an eyesore.
When I first came into town, it was probably about a month before the fire, he told me about the church and what was going on, and when, you know, I kind of had an idea in my head of what to expect, but when I saw it, my jaw dropped. I said, this is horrible. This is just like the worst. All I could imagine was God looking down and saying, you've dressed my church as a whore. And that's, in my mind, what was coming into my head. And it broke my heart. It just broke my heart. I said, is there something we can do? Is there something we could do to maybe buy the church and then clean it up? Because you know, just driving one time through this town, I was appalled. And so, yes, absolutely. First thing, as soon as, you know, the weather is good, we're going to take every bit of paint, every flag, every coat this thing down, everything. Just wipe it clean, new blacktop, everything. I mean, this isn't, you know, we have limitations, yes, because we're from out of town, but we have very prominent pastors that are going to be on board with us. They're going to send us pastors, so we're going to have pastors that are like visiting pastors until we get our own pastor. And those pastors will come in and do their Sunday service. We also want to do a Saturday thing. We want to have, you know, Bible studies. We just want this to be a real church and community center, not, you know, not just this is for Free Staters or this is for Catholics or we want everyone that believes in Jesus Christ to be able to come into that church and know that there are other people there that believe in Jesus Christ as well. And that's what my intention was when the first time I opened my mouth and said, what can we do for this church? So I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with me, but that's where I want this church to go.
What about the tax issue?
There's two avenues. There's an incorporated and an unincorporated way. I fully understand the resistance to wanting to incorporate as a 501c3. The reasons for that are this. I am a big advocate of protecting people's privacy. When you have an organization that is a C3, Tiffany and I have administered several of them, you have got to give up your list to the government. I don't think that is something that we need to do as a church. Churches and its members have come under attack before because political operatives, even if we don't want to be political and we avoid it, does not mean that others can't get our membership list. The reason for going an unincorporated route, which is very feasible, it's the same standards apply. So as you're graded, are you or are you not a church, the same pecking order and criteria applies. But we're taking an unincorporated route to protect the membership list. It is not a radical thing. It is, we want to protect the contact information and the names of the church's members.
But this, here we go again. It's like Sue said. you're bringing political back into it. Let's get away from the political.
No,
You
I'm
want-
not bringing it back into it, I'm saying for
But
those
you
that
are,
would
by not taking,
politicize.
wanting to go to 501, because the thing being is, if you want community to come down there and take part of that church,
You know,
you have to do away with the political, and you're not doing away with the political by keeping,
no,
saying, well,
I'm trying to protect the parishioners from the
but
political.
that's being political to the townspeople.
Can I say something? You're saying this is a Christian church, and I know there's different sects and different ways of worshiping, and I believe you all have that right, of course, to be a little different. But do you realize there's people dying all over the world for standing up and saying, I'm a Christian in China, in Africa, and you're saying I'm afraid to have my name on a list and be told I'm a Christian? I don't get that. That's not what Christianity is about.
Well,
So I'm not
afraid-
here to, you know,
I think you're confusing two different things. I am not cowering from stating that I'm a Christian, and I don't think anyone here
Yeah,
is. I am
but
looking
Christianity is, it's more than being a club, which we know, and a church is the people, it's not the building.
Right.
Church has always been the people, so I think, I'm new, my name's Donna, I just moved here, but I'm from this area, 2 towns over. I've been out of state for a while. I personally don't have a problem with people from outside of a town jumping in and helping. This is a big world now. It's not, it's not the way it was when everybody had one car and drove 10 miles a week. I mean, it's a big world. It's great people want to help. But you've got to, like they're saying, you've got to separate the politics, because I'm not afraid to have my name on any list anywhere saying I belong to a church, because church is my life. And so, I think it's great and it's important to me as a resident to see the church's facade restored to original looks, and I think that's what you're saying, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. I hope you can do it. I've been passing that church since I was a child. I've never even been in that church. I didn't grow up in Grafton, I grew up in Hill. But stop it with the politics. Christianity is not about politics.
Right.
It's about people. And if you want to help people and restore this beautiful building and make it great for Grafton and everybody who drives down Route 4, it's not just Grafton, it's everybody who commutes on Route 4 every day. Have it look great. I think that's awesome. But, pay your taxes. People in China, whatever, they're probably having to pay your taxes until you can be, officially granted being a church. It's like she said, bringing in pastors and having an organization improving. Instead of, sitting down your feet, say we won't pay, just pay. If you really believe God wants you to do this, and this is a Christian church, I can't speak for other religions, then do what you think He wants you to do, and you'll get your tax exemption.
Yeah, I fully expect we will. I mean, I have nothing in any of our preliminary plans fails to meet each of the standards for that. So that's exactly the direction we're going. And as I mentioned earlier, any payment that comes right now is not going to be we're not acquiescing that we owe taxes as a church. My position as I stand here now, and this is through my direct interaction with Pastor Connell, is that although the aesthetics may not have pleased everybody, the technicalities, those standards have been met. So the taxes, I am going to pay a particular amount to the town to make sure that we retain ownership of the church. I am not willing to call that money owed taxes. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Elaine Bergerby. So I think I can get to the heart of the matter why it's a problem to have only people from Massachusetts. I'm not saying that I care if there's Massachusetts people. That's not my issue. But I think we can get to the heart of why we need local people. And that is, you all talk about how great our community is, but have you reached out to any of the very active groups already in this community? Because we do have plenty. And I'm involved in at least 2 of them, and I haven't heard a word.
Well, I know what I'd like to do is start getting some information from the historical folks to see what the inside and outside of that building has looked like over the course of its lifetime. And that's going to be essential moving forward as we're making plans to rebuild. So, and also in answer to your question, I have been. I'm up here every week. And I do go out and shake hands and talk to locals. In fact, there was a woman, I was hoping she was gonna be here today, but I did not capture her name. Kind of embarrassed to say it, but I was looking at the lovely view on Turnpike Road and drove off into one of those swales and got myself stuck. And while I was waiting for someone to come pull me out, this lovely woman pulls up behind me, and I walk around to her car door. She turns around and pulls this knife out of a piece of cardboard that she had in her car. She goes, "You need to start cutting some twigs over there and putting them under your tires," you know, all this stuff. We got into a big discussion about the church. Don't know what even brought it up. But I told her, I said, you know, I've got some dear friends who really want to save that church and bring it back to what it was. And we got talking for a few minutes, and before you know it, I made the poor woman just about cry. She was pretty excited about what we wanted to do. Her last name was an old name from town, someone who's been one of your colleagues for many decades. And I hope to bump into her again. I wish that I had not been so distraught and angry at myself for putting my truck in the ditch, that I had taken the time to get her name and number. You know, here's someone who's not a Free Stater, who was just one of your neighbors, and I wish I could remember her name. But she is someone, I'm sure, when I reconnect with, is someone who's going to help us. She's going to offer something, somehow, in some way. She's that type of person. That was the vibe I got from her. And as we go out knocking on doors, and that's just what we're going to do. If anything political is brought to this organization by myself, and in particular Tiffany, it's what we learned as far as outreach. How to find your target audience and appeal to them and bring them on board. So we're going to use not political things, but skill sets that we've developed over years to reach out in the community to bring people into this room again.
So I have to, I'm sorry, I have to leave, but this viewing of your anti-government and anti-public organizations is political and it's highly offensive. I'm a public school teacher.
Okay,
And
thank you.
we are the most caring people that you can find.
I said nothing derogatory
Oh,
about
yes, you
public
did.
school
What
teachers.
did he call us? What did he call the institution of public schools? What did you just call
I
it?
did not refer to the teachers.
No,
I
but
referred
you
to
called the
institutions as
institution.
re-education camps.
And
That's what I
that's
said.
one of your highly respected members worked for the school district for many years.
Mhm.
So you need to
Tiffany.
stop with the politics.
I just wanted to add one thing. The board members, there are still board members that are local here. And the board is not it's set in stone. Any one of you would be, you know, we have the ability to add onto our board. We would welcome more input onto the board. We also have a list of supporters and, I'm sorry, what do they call the other?
They have an advisory board.
There's an advisory board. We're not bringing Massachusetts values here like Dave, you know, reiterated before. We're wanting to help you do what you want to do with the church.
Is there anyone from another board in the audience today, from any other municipal board?
Municipal board or, or other boards in town?
Yeah, I mean, either a town board or related nonprofit or anything. What would those be?
I'm the president of the Friends of the Library. We're the 501c3.
Okay, Friends of the Library.
I'm the secretary of the Fire and Ambulance Police Auxiliary.
And you, sir?
I'm vice president of the Historical Society in Grafton here right now, and we are in the process of restoring the church, the East Grafton Church, through the process of grants, okay? We've been fortunate that we received a big grant, and right now, the construction is underway. This is not a rich community, believe me. The library, the Historical Society, we fight for every penny that we get. Our membership is very low, but speaking for the Historical Society, it's a group that's trying to preserve this town. And believe me, when that church went up down there and in flames, there was some tears shed in this town. And the paint that's gone on that down there, the junk that's out back there, and I had my maybe a couple run-ins with John over the years of being involved with the snowmobile club and the stuff that's out on that rail bed out there. 2 years ago, the state of New Hampshire sent him a registered letter to clean it up out back there, because that rail bed from the center to the side, the state owns, and there was his stuff out on the rail bed out there. I understand you people are gonna clean it up. I commend you for that. But, you know, this is a small community, and we're not rich. Money is tight. Taxes are high, okay? We all agree. If your road wasn't plowed, you'd be the first one to be bitching about it. I can assure you that, okay? So we all pay our taxes. And separating the politics from the church has gotta be separated out, period.
If I can add to that, I mean, we have several big building projects that are going on in town, including the Historical Society's renovations, also the town library. So, you know, any fundraising you do in town is going to split that focus, and none of it's going to get done. And this is why it's important for you to have somebody from town on your board, because these are things that you guys didn't know. Okay, but
And we are doing most of our fundraising out of town.
You know, it should be understood that when I saw that there was a one-way direction of where this church was going, fundraising here became lethargic. I reached out to my existing network, and a little over a week and a half, came up with the $13,800 in pledges. Not one penny of it came from New Hampshire. These are people out of state that want to do something nice for your community and are underpinned by their Christian values. And I mean, that's where the money came from. I'm not gonna lie to you and say 1 cent came from your town, because it didn't. It came from out of town. I intend to shift that. We may be competitive to some extent for some of the same local dollars, but you know what? As long as it is the citizens that are gonna benefit, no matter which of the 3 entities they go with, how do they lose? I don't wanna be competitive in a hostile way. I want us, you know, which one of us can be responsible for the most greatness in Grafton? And can we work together as a group? Can we work with the library? I certainly hope that we can get a liaison from the Historical Commission to work with us.
You know, there's one thing, we all have rules and regulations that we have to follow. We have guidelines, okay? This is, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm naive or whatever, but we follow these guidelines. We're not exempt. Why should you people be exempt?
The churches are exempt.
Well, I understand that, but there are other guidelines too. You know?
And when those standards are met, we expect the exemption. We can't have the selective application of the same standards, and that's all I'm going to make sure of. I am intent on meeting
There are
every
certain guidelines for the state, with the state of New Hampshire too, as being a church, if my understanding.
We are going to meet the performance standards required for the exemption.
Well, then you have to work with the local people like the library, the
I've asked for a
historical society.
liaison from the selectmen to work with us
Yeah.
and meet each of their individual concerns. If they think something needs to be fortified in a particular area, I would like to hear it from their liaison. And the liaison is not someone who's really got any authority. It's for the smooth transfer of information back and forth between boards. I would hope there's a liaison from the Historical Society, so as we
You're
do a
welcome to come
rebuild.
to a historical meeting anytime. We don't meet as much in the wintertime. We meet from May to October. The historical building is open, and we're very active.
And I hope you come over and have a coffee with us some morning too. We can always talk shop over coffee. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. You've answered most of my questions, so thank you for arranging this and having it open to the public, but I just have a few more questions. As the new group of people, it's been great to get to know who you are and where you come from. Will you be continuing as Peaceful Assembly Church, or will you be reincorporating under a different name?
We haven't done anything definitive yet. I don't think we're going to be abandoning the Peaceful Assembly name. There's been no movement in that direction. Possibly, if anything, make sure the message going out to those that drive by at 50 miles an hour or those that live in town, we are a church and we are a community center. Among the things we were wanting to do, I know some of the folks in the center of town who may not have had the same appreciation for art as John did, shall we say. We wanted to have wireless Wi-Fi available, and we're going to let people use it free. The only thing is, they're going to have to come in once a week and sit down and have coffee with us. We're going to post it right by the coffee machine. People are going to come in and interact with us, but we want to give back to the community, and it's going to start with those that live right next to the church and move out town-wide.
I have a couple more, if I may. I think,
Are you asking your questions on behalf of an organization? I see you pulling the questions.
no, I just have notes, because
Okay.
my memory's not so great all the time.
Okay.
I had a list of them, and you answered some of them, so that's why I'm consulting my list here. So in the first days following the fire, there were remarks in the paper, which is not always necessarily accurate, that the building was a total loss, or that it was going to be needed to be raised the night of the fire or the days following. So the news that it could be rescued, restored, saved is good news, but I'm wondering, I'm curious to know more about the people who have assessed it and have come to that conclusion and what the estimated cost would be. This is probably not the venue for that, but I just wanted to ask the questions. And the other one that I do want an answer to is, will you be continuing with John Redmond in any way, shape, or form?
I'm going to be very careful how I answer that question.
So I can answer that for you.
No. John Redmond, if he doesn't leave the property when I ask him politely to, will be bodily removed by me.
Thank you very much for your answers. I appreciate that. I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I missed the first few minutes of it, but I kind of had the same question that she had as far as how much, you've got grand plans here, and they sound like great plans, but that building's a mess right now, and it's going to be expensive to put back together. What do you anticipate it's going to cost to get that up and running the way you want it to be?
Very good, very common sense question, and I can't give you a number now, and that's not a stall tactic, because I had 3 contractors out just yesterday that looked at it. I've still got to get them some dimensions on the building. The official numbers, I believe, frost is 20% damage in the building. Isn't that what came from the fire department? Do we have anyone from the fire department?
What's the question?
As far as the percent damage, was that 20%? Am I correct in that?
It's hard to say. I put the loss at close to $100,000 worth of damage, but I'm not a contractor. The initial thought during the fire was because of the old structure. We were unsure of even sending people into the building because of what I initially saw on the start of the fire. When we went the following day in daylight, it gave us a better perspective. And we found that it was structurally sound. The major carrying beams were intact. The ceiling of the first floor, which was made out of wood, actually protected the carrying beams of the second floor, which at the time we didn't know. I've been in that building several times before, and I didn't know that those particular, the roof, or the ceiling, I should say, the first floor, I thought that was the start of the second floor. I did not know until after the fire. So that actually protected those beams quite well from the heat. During the initial fire, because of the age of the building, we were reluctant to send crews in because of the nature of the fire, how it was burning, and the building. When the state fire marshal and myself went in the following morning, we found that the building to be pretty solid, and that our greatest fear of the tower being structurally unsound, that the folks from Hanover, when we called them in early, did a great job of containing that. The fire path, whatever, did not even, did follow up the tower, if you will, but did not burn into it. It basically followed the surface of the thing, so that's not a critical factor. That's why we made the decision not to raise it until we had a better assessment, and we did have that better assessment, all right?
Thank you
So-
for the
so-
additional info.
So, there's a lot of ceiling damage on the second floor, but that's basically old horsehair stuff that fell through because of the volume of water. So there is some water damage, there's some charring. Other than that, they have something to work with. The beams, I don't know what species of wood is, I've heard it could have been even chestnut, but they're pretty large. In fact, one of the comments that the state fire marshal has made is they've overbuilt this. Because if it was built to today's standard, that should have came down.
John?
Yeah, I believe that the beams are Douglas fir, and I'm trying from a
Douglas fir
historical-
is not native to this area. my
No,
understanding.
it may not be, but I'm thinking that's what it is.
Did they release the cause? Like, what was the?
The cause have not been released, and when the cause is released, then I'll make comments on that, but I'm gonna reserve some of the things I saw internally, but I can tell you the structure of the building is sound for us to return it over, so.
You know, estimated time when that's supposed to come out?
That is, I'm sure, typically when there's a autopsy, toxicology takes 6 to 8 weeks, plus whatever investigative time to do the analysis of materials taken out of the building.
To get back into, to finish up, and I'll get right to you, Sean. The two things that have been proposed to me in terms of repairs, and again, this is more to the structural timbers and not the finished work and some of the tedious stuff that would be done after, is to replace in kind, which means find the same species of wood, same timber framing, notching, pegging that would be involved, would obviously be a little bit more. And from an engineering point of view, the process for that would be different. What appears to be cost effective and will result in greater structural integrity post-repair is steel plating. To actually sister together, cut out the charred timbers that are just unusable, cut them out, replace them, and sleeve them on both sides with steel plating bolted right through. And from a structural integrity point of view, I'm told will be better than the original. I'm inclined to do that. And these are such beautiful beams. It's a shame that they were all wrapped up and behind the finished work that it was. So not only would I like to see some more raw timber in there, but I think the repairs, the scars, is part of the history of this church. And I would ask that those beams be exposed and those the steel repairs to this poor church stand as testament to everyone that goes up in that sanctuary for the rest of that building's life. Ross?
Just a few things. Number one, the way that I have to speak as obviously as a citizen, because I can't speak as a selectman at this meeting. The way that came about and how we chose to present this to you was not how I would have liked to have it presented. And that was something that was voted about how that should be presented. But the way that I wanted to present that was that, look, the sentiment of the town is, the church is 219 years old. Every single person that I've spoken with and that's called me, that's called the selectman's office, wants to keep the church. And discussions have been had about what that would have been. Whether it would have been a library, in combination with some kind of community center in use for town meeting purposes, because that's what its original purpose was when it was constructed. That was the intention of it. And the unfortunate part about it is there's an immense amount of grants that are available to municipalities to take a situation like that, where you have that type of disruption in the building and repair it. Not only to repair it, but to repair it to historical value. And I think it's important, like you said, to leave some of that scarring so it's part of the history of the church. But I think overwhelmingly the town would have liked to have seen that building return to a community use where just like now at the town hall, you can go in up and sign up to use that building anytime. The problem with that building is there's not space for people to park, and is the access to it is poor. So, you know, we were looking at this as a potential to solve a lot of these problems, should the board of directors decide that they wanted to either sign the church over or let it go to tax. And that's where I was coming from. That's where I would like to come from publicly in that meeting. However, that was not the sentiment of a clear sentiment of the board. So personally, that's where I was coming from. I think what will happen is there's still a lot of separation between the board and what the town thinks, as far as the town wanting to be able to come in there and say, can we use this building? The town is not going to feel free at this point to walk in there and say, can we use this building for this and that?
Why not? I mean, right now, it's a crime scene, obviously, but
from what
what I said that would lead you to believe that we wouldn't be inviting.
Not what you said. What the townspeople have said in this meeting is because you can't separate the political and the religious portions of that, the town will always have a hard time swallowing being able to go in there and freely use the church and have a give and take relationship. Until you separate that, you're going to continuously butt heads. And that's the biggest unfortunate part of this whole thing.
I mean, that's part of the reason why I asked for the board to consider forgiving of the taxes, so that we can start at neutral, put every penny of what we have into the programs that we've shared here. I mean, we've got to move. Go ahead.
John, just to trying to get a better grasp on this, the political, religious thing, it appears as though that John in the past never paid taxes, and he never properly filed the paperwork to become recognized by whatever level of government as a church, to get that, you know, the proper relationship between political and, you know, religious, where you are allowed by the state to be considered a church because you gave the proper paperwork and set it inside the parameters. So he never did that, right? And that was the source of animosity. So what I gathered from what Dave's been talking about is that from henceforward, he's looking to have the proper relationship by proper filing of the paperwork of the 501c3 specific forms, so that the relationship is as the state wants it, whether it's federal, local, or
the BTLA.
Yeah, the BOTLA. So I think by doing that, the issues that John had created the animosity with in the past are going to be gone, and so that the church would be in compliance and therefore apolitical because they're within the system that the state wants it to be. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. What you have to consider is it's not a very clear, cut and dry situation. Meaning that the laws that are written, state, federal, and what have you, there is not a clear outline. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a lawsuit between the church and the town. If it was clear, it would have been decided ahead of time, and that would have been it. I think what you have a problem with is when you have politics and a religious sect combined together, and there's no clear delineation, then any taxing authority is going to have a ridiculous job ahead of them to define that. And it's not fair to the taxing authority to have that to the townspeople. The townspeople can't understand the difference between if they hold a meeting at their house and call themselves a church, why shouldn't they be tax-free? And if you let one person do it, and what's to stop every person in this town from calling themselves a church and to move forward with that.
I would ask the question more directly, what's to stop the Board of Selectmen from deciding that some Catholic church suddenly isn't a church?
Exactly.
It's, and I thought it was pretty clear with that, is that the things that are in place, if all of those criteria are met,
That's what we're going to do.
listen, let me finish. If all of those criteria are met, and there's no gray area to say, is this a political group or is this a religious group? Then it's not a question. Then you get your tax-free status. But if you look at case law from all around the country, when that becomes a debate is when you have legal arguments back and forth. You have to separate the two. Otherwise, it's not clear.
I beg to differ. Back 250 years ago, when they were talking about separating from England, it came from the pulpit. They were talking politics in the churches years ago.
This is correct, but this is 2016.
Doesn't matter to me.
Is there any other church in this
I'm
area?
sorry?
Is there any other churches in this area?
Yes,
Okay, do you charge them taxes?
not the churches that are, the Millbrook Christian Church files their paperwork every year and has so for the, when they were in the building that you're currently residing in. That church was in place for 200 and some odd years. And they followed the guidelines set forth
Okay, so
all of that time.
Okay, so they followed the guidelines, so it wasn't like you're picking and choosing on anything. And number two is that, does that church open up to service people? I know my church, okay, we have 3 clusters right now because we have 1 priest. God help him. And we serve the people in the community who couldn't have food, so we made meals for them. I served up to 100 people at a time at my church.
Yes, that church was.
Yes, and we have, you know, CCE classes for the children and things of that nature.
Right?
But if you want to use the church, okay, you want to come in and you wanted to have a party, you could, but you had to pay a fee because you're using electricity, you're using the heating, and you're using the water and everything. So you had to pay a fee. But when we open up, we can do the same thing. Our church, it's open to the public. Everybody come enjoy, come and see what it's about.
But do you hear what the people in the town have said today? That they're not comfortable coming into that situation with the political environment that's there.
What political environment?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my finger on that too.
I
I'm not
don't
sure what was
understand.
being
Where
politicized by
would
this
be a
board right now.
What's political? It took us almost 3 hours to get here,
Yeah.
okay? And I want to help this community to heal and to come together and support you. But I don't understand where you're coming from political. Please explain yourself on that. I need some explanation.
I wish that I could, to put in from 2010 to 2016, I wish I could force that into a little cube and hand it to you. But the problem is I can't. It's the day-to-day living that goes on in this town and the ebb and flow that's been going on between this church and its members in this community has always been negative. Do you understand that? Do you know what kind of damage that does to a community when you do it for that many years over and over again?
Well, and I think a lot of the signs that were outside the church for a long time were very political.
It was my understanding that Mr. Connell did put some things out there that would have triggered problems if they had a 501c3 status. And that type of activity would be absolutely prohibited.
So
We're not looking for anything political, referendum items, candidates, Democrat or Republican, third party, don't matter. That type of stuff is not what we do.
I think part of it is that by associating with the church and the history that John, and maybe it was specifically John, but John in the name of the church had with the town, you get that baggage.
Yeah, you've got the baggage, it's yours.
And it's-
Why didn't John get the baggage that went with Millbrook? Because
to a different place. It's an entity in town, and it exists.
Okay,
Like-
so what do you people want? Tell us, what do you want?
Don't ask me, because
I'm not asking that, I'm just asking out. What do you
I
want?
feel like this war has cost me too much. It's cost this town too much. A man's life is gone because of this war. And don't pretend the select board has nothing to do with it. And don't act like those two people that got up and stormed out is the voice of the town. Because I talk to a lot of people too. I've been around the town and I've talked to a lot of people. And they think it's disgusting that the town didn't want the church before Mr. Cannell bought it. And then turned around and wanted to deed it because they didn't want him to have it because they didn't like what he did with it.
Cindy, you're misunderstanding.
No. And the town attorney told you to grant the abatement, and you turned around and listened to Mr. Stetson from Avatar instead. And you know what? It doesn't matter who's right or wrong anymore. These are new people coming in and trying to do something good. And can we just stop the damn war? It's disgusting. It's cost us 20 grand in legal fees, and it's cost a man's life. And every time I see who's going to be out there waving to me? Will Brewster go? Hell no.
Well, I got one thing to say to you, Cindy. You didn't build this town, and the people that have been here their entire lives built the town.
Yeah.
And the
And
things
I
that
didn't
you,
tear it down either.
the things that you say, and the way that you go about
By the
saying
way,
it.
speak to Chief Petroius, because he was in the
His
building.
name's
He spoke
Poitras.
with us about how wonderful those beans are, those hand-hewn beans are. So I'm sure he can give you a good idea of what that.
It's unfortunate, I
communicate
thought,
with the chief pretty regular. This gentleman and then to you.
A couple things. You asked what brought the division of the church with the town. Well, part of it is that when the Free State movement came into town and John took over the church, they kind of separated from the townspeople. That's where it all started. And
Yeah, the battle line started there, and I'm tearing all that down. I've got friends on both sides,
There's two
so
sides
I've
to
got.
that.
Right, exactly. But also, here we are, we're trying to move on, all right? You brought up a question that nobody's asked yet, all right? And it's costing the Board of Trustees, and it's costing the townspeople. What is going to happen with the lawsuit that's going on in Superior Court? Is that going to be set aside so that we could, so that group of yours could take and try to pull the townspeople together by being tax exempt, taking care of your taxes, because we know the selectmen's hands are tied and they can only do so much. And what's happened with the select board in the past or anything is in the past. We need to move on from that.
Yeah. My expectations of the selectmen is they're gonna do their homework, and I'm gonna expect the forgiveness of those taxes moving forward.
But what happens if
that's
they-
for good faith, we have gotta do just what you just described, and bring people together from both sides of the fence.
But what happens if they can't go as far as you would like them to go, but they try, you've both got to meet. And the new board has to understand where the select board is coming from. And you want to take and bring the community together, you first got to take care of the tax situation. And after that, then you got to take care of the politics that was there. And then people will maybe slowly.
Nobody's jabbing more signs in the snowbank out there, any political signs. I won't have it.
No, but you're asking for ideas on how to.
Yeah.
And this is where you got to start. You can't go back and blame the selectmen. We're past that now. Let's move forward.
This is our brainstorming right here, and there's not one political item on that list. The political discussion is being forced into the dialogue right now. I don't want to be political.
No,
I want to be apolitical. I want to go back to where the town is eager to work with us, the town's fathers and the town's people.
But that's got to start with you guys taking and doing what the people in town are looking for.
All right. Now, who's offended by everything they see in the yard? Raise your hand. Who's offended by the aesthetics of the church? All right. Me too. I love John. Let me finish. I love John. His art and his religion came too close together. John has a lot of supporters. I went to his memorial services, I got to meet family and friends I haven't known for years. I'm going to suggest, which I've already started doing, that we pull that stuff together, get that group of people together and have an art auction. Sell that stuff, get it out of the yard. We're going to need it for rebuilding anyways. It just can't be there. I think it is John's art and deserves the respect of that and doesn't get thrown in the junkyard. Let the people that were his supporters and loved John buy that at an art auction. Let them take a little piece of John home. Let us put that money into the church that John loves so much. So I'm going to clean up the yard, hopefully turn it into revenue that will go into productive use in fixing the church, pacify the people that have a deep appreciation for the art side of John, and move forward from there. I've got palatable solutions that I'd love to share with everybody as we go forward, but we've got to have a civil dialogue to do it. And we've got to have teamwork between the board. Sean, I hope somehow, some way, that you can come around, your heart softens on us, and your other board members are willing to come together and actually help us.
It's not anything about heart softening. It's, I wouldn't be here if I didn't care about the situation. It kills me to sit here and listen to some of this stuff. But the fact is in this position, you have a certain group of parameters. You have to work within that position. So you are asking us to work outside of that. You understand the problem there?
No, we're operating as a church with church programs, and we'll be seeking the exemption and your approval for that. That should be done. Yes, Sonia.
I think
I'm sorry, this man, you're right after her. She had her hand up first, and I'll go right to you, I promise. Okay, then Sonia, and then you.
Okay, I just wanted to, this is, we are going to try to be tax exempt from this day forward. What happened before is that John or the board acquired taxes. We will pay whatever taxes that we have to pay. We will pay those. If we can't get exempt, which we would like to be exempt for all the taxes, but obviously we can't. So, we will pay those taxes that we have to pay. Whatever we can file an exemption for, we will file an exemption for. Hopefully we can work through this and get rid of the old baggage and move forward from this day on. The tax thing, it's going to get worked out. We're not looking to, get by and not pay our taxes. I'm all for paying the taxes. I have no problem with that as long as there isn't a way, to move and remove them. If there's not, that's fine. Let's just do it and let's just get that over with. It's ridiculous.
Right, and that's one of the barriers that needs to be, and that's what the townspeople want to hear.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to move forward. We expect to be tax exempt because that's what churches are. We're going to go down that list of standards, and in my opinion, we are going to leave no choices for the approving authorities but to approve our exemption.
What happens to your prior board, and do I understand that you are actually going to be asking for a 501?
We are not going, there's an incorporated and unincorporated. There are two avenues to go for a church. We are going to the unincorporated group. So the 501c3 is not our primary choice.
Is this intended to be a new entity or a continuation of the old one?
Let me get to your question. Let me finish here.
Are you, you're going to be accepting donations to help with the church, correct? If you're not a 501, how do you handle that?
Well, the C3 status, all of that does is it makes you tax exempt and it makes your contributions write-off. They can be written off by a contributor. That's the key thing to that.
Yes. So you said
What I'm saying is
you wanted the people that belong to the church to fade into the background. No one knew who they were. If you become a 501 and you get contributions, we can look at your information. Are you trying to avoid that?
In an incorporated 501.
Yes.
An Right.
He's talking about an unincorporated
So my
501c3.
question is,
We could protect our members.
my question is, if you're not incorporated, how does the contribution get recognized?
It's the same way.
No, I went out as an individual and spent just about a week and a couple of days to raise $13,000. And I simply called up the people that reside on my phone, said, I've got a church in trouble, I've got a team ready to go to work. Will you give me some money? That's how I did
Because
that.
money is,
Where in how they write it off the tax rate, if you're not a 501c3.
Right.
Oh, all right, I didn't understand the direction of your question. For it to be a tax write-off, then you would have to incorporate a particular way. To be tax exempt from the point of view that the discussions we've been going at with the selectmen, that can be done unincorporated, it can be done both ways. So one way you get a tax write-off as the contributor through the C3, and the other way you are tax exempt from a municipal standpoint, whether you're incorporated or unincorporated. Either avenue, you can still achieve that exemption just by meeting the performance standards for a church.
So you are legally able to accept money, donations?
Sure.
Then what happened to the old board?
They're still with us. There's one of them.
Okay, so how many members are there of the board now then?
There are 9.
Okay, and who are they?
It's the 5 people you met here: Tom, Jeremy Olson, Jay Boucher, and Lois, the young lady who's sitting up here.
So they had nothing to say today because the new people.
That was my recommendation. I asked for a reorganization. I wanted to remove myself because of personal issues with the select board and other departments, that I don't want to be a block or used as a block for not going forward. If the townspeople want me off the board, I'm willing to do that also, if I am the problem. I looked at being the chair. Going forward, I'm going to be used as John's friend in this. No one wants to talk about my spiritual. We talk. I'm a spiritual person. No one wants to discuss what we do at the church spiritually or the services. Yes, you come to one service, and because it's not what you're used to, if you went to a Quaker service, it'd be almost the same thing. Saying that, I look at I might be an obstacle. I asked for reorganization. We've talked about this for months, and I was not going to turn this over and remove myself from the chairperson until I got a promise from these 5 people who are, they got one extra vote. They won't carry things if they work as a group. I don't see that happening here. We're already blending. The thing is, they have to more or less promise me in public before you, they are going to pay off that tax, the $6,800. Okay, that's John's taxes he didn't pay. We were going to pay that off. We didn't. We didn't have the funds. They did. So they said they were going to pay the funds they're raising. So I go, okay, that's a condition. The town gets that money. I'm not going to turn over the chair. And then all of a sudden the new chair says, we're going to do a John Cannell thing.
So you are still the chair?
No, I'm not. We won't reorganize it. That's the chair.
Okay. But the other people that you just mentioned are still board members?
Yes.
Okay. You're only required to go 5, am I correct? 5 board
Minimum
members.
of 5.
Minimum, but you can have as many beyond that as you want.
5 unrelated.
And whose names will be on the filing?
Probably all 5.
Okay.
There's a question, because Jeremy had made it public that he might resign from the board. Like Bob Hall resigned and James Ryder has resigned. Jeremy might also. can't go forward. John couldn't do it, I couldn't make it happen. I see the vision here that it could be. We keep, even myself, I keep bringing John up, and the building, it's not the building, the church is us. The building will be gone. I mentioned that we're not going away, I mean, your neighbors and all. And at one time when I said that, it came back that I threatened you, because I said, no, even if you don't get an exemption, we're not going away. We're still here. We all believe in different ways, different things.
Can I have,
One more minute. We're talking about a building that was beat up, but the piece of forgiveness still goes on. I try making peace by removing myself, hoping we can move forward. Mike. Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I asked one question a few minutes ago and never got an answer. Being the chairman of the budget committee, I have an interest in it. There's a lawsuit pending through, that's gone into Superior Court. Is that going to continue going forward, or are both sides going to take and say, you know, let's drop it, that's going to be extra money for the church group
because it is active litigation, I'm very limited on what I can say, but I will throw out one generality that I think should carry the day here. I have more faith in the common sense of people being able to sit down in a room like this and hash something out, and would prefer that every day over feeding lawyers. I'm serious, they're the ones that are going to benefit from this. You'll spend orders of magnitude more money in litigation fees than you'll ever recover in taxes. And we're doing the same thing. Can we not throw that money at something better? So I don't know, I can't say for sure. I'd like to think that I'm going to get some good news from the selectmen that will lead to a path where we can say, thank you, you're paid off, go away, we've got this now. That's what I'm hoping.
Since I've been involved in the lawsuit, as you know, lawsuits, you can't say things. But there's some things I can say is, now that Sean's gone.
You can say now that Sean's gone?
No. I'm saying that Sean addressed it, that, first of all, the board asked for this meeting. That's why I got a little.
Your board.
I'm sorry, Peaceful Assembly Church asked for this meeting to be public. We got notified that the select board would like to meet us in non-public, which I didn't even respond to Sue's email. I go, well, why and where? This is going to be a public thing. So I asked for a meeting on a Sunday, and we thanked them for that, so all the boards could get together. That's why we are here today. That's why when Merle said, no, this is our, I go, no, this isn't your meeting. I asked for it. I purposely did not answer Sue, because I didn't acknowledge that. I asked. Going back to the lawsuit, back taxes, we have paid 1 year, $4,000. We were going to pay the second agreement, but on the day I went in there with 2 other board members to sign it, it was $900. No one told us about it. I didn't even have the courtesy note of saying, oh, we have to need you 2 years and it's going to be this amount. If Sue can produce that and I missed it, I will apologize and retract it. But this is it. You walk into something, you go, okay, we're going to make another agreement. You're assuming you're going to make a 1-year agreement, and it's going to be 4. I had permission to go up to $500. We actually had a Peaceful Assembly Church board meeting and that non-public, so I get permission from James Ryder and Jeremy to sign something more than I was allowed to spend. And I did it telling them, I don't know if I can keep this, but I will try to do fundraising. And at the very end, we did come up with new members, new board members who are willing to fund and go on, and it will be a Christian denomination. That's the best I can tell you on that. We did pay 1 year, $4,000. We're going to pay another year to at least try even. Now, what's in the lawsuit is when we incorporated, from that point on, we did all our due diligence, and now we can pull up the video of the select board saying, well, you haven't been here long enough. we're at a point now where the government is now telling who is going to be a church or not. We're gonna set the criteria, and if you meet the criteria, we might have missed something we're gonna add on later on, and you're always going up that ladder. We filed an appeal, and that's appeal which is in there, which I can't talk about, which could be dropped if we have an exemption going forward. That'd be up to the board to decide with their attorneys and the select board. We pay off this amount, we made a couple offers that I understand were not accepted through lawyers. You have to talk on that. The offers going back and forth. So it's been working, but you gotta pay the taxes or not. Well, what about going forward? You gonna recognize us or, it's one of those points. To me, it is a personal, political. I try to remove the personal. And as I said, and the board knows, I really need one more time. I am the problem. I had a hard time with other past people. Rest in peace, John. But we tried.
Next question.
It wasn't so much a question. I wish you guys all the best, and believe me, I will try to support you in any way possible.
Thank you.
One of as Cindy alluded to, there is a war, and unfortunately you're stuck in a battle. It's not a war, it's a battle. The lawyers, or the attorney's fees in this town have gone up, I think, 400% in the last few years.
From $5,000 to this year, they're budgeting $25,000 because they overspent.
For the fact of, let's find a freestater, not all of it, but there's a lot of, let's fight a freestater out. And I just want you to know, that's what I think Sean's talking about is, I don't know that the select board is going to be able to step back and say, you guys are cool, whatever happened, happened. I don't know that you're gonna have that. I just want you guys all to be aware of it, that's all.
If I may, I wanted to comment to the comments to the lady on your left. I forget her name.
Me?
No, Dave, the lady to your left.
Right.
Yes. To speak, you had said, what do you want? That you don't really know what's going on here. The best thing you, as someone from away, even as close as Massachusetts can do, ask questions. Be empathetic. Understand that you are walking into a hostile situation. Don't get upset when people are upset with you. I know it's not a counterintuitive, it's not the most easy thing, but when you're stepping into a shit show, center three-ring shit show, and understand that, and just be sensitive to.
Do you have your support?
I'm here with questions. You don't have my support yet, but you don't have my opposition yet either. But I think the folks here in town have reservations, skepticism, and none of that makes them bad people. It doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong, but they have skepticism. You, as someone new walking into the situation, I don't want to cast you aside because you're someone new, you're here to help, and you seem to have good intentions. But understand that you're walking into a shit show. A lot of hurt feelings, a lot of people are scared, and if they're upset with you, try not to take it personally. I know that's, or if they're upset in your general direction, but near you. But I think empathetic response and transparency is the only other thing that I can really encourage the board moving forward, because there is absolutely none of that right now, or historically. And so people don't know what to think. They think the worst. They hear rumors through the scuttlebutt. But if you have light on everything, you don't have the majority of what's going on here. And if you, coming in as someone new, have someone who's been here 20, 70, 150 years screaming at you about the church, and you scream back, you've lost an opportunity. Where you should just, if you honor that this town is fractured.
Good information.
It's terrible.
Thank you.
So good luck.
Thank you. We'll see you. We'll bring you in. We'll bring you in.
I agree.
Ma'am?
Coming back.
Yeah. We tried to reach out with a liaison.